right, welcome to the Detroit Lions News Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Chap. Damn, the microphone almost fell again. Um, Look, we're gonna get into the game preview. I think that's what a lot of people really want to talk about. Obviously, that's the first and foremost because that's why we're doing the game preview podcast. But I wanted to start out with something. Now we have picked our winner for the jersey giveaway contest. His name is Travis Wright. His favorite player was Aiden Hutchinson, and he has won the jersey contest. So we will be reaching out to Travis directly. And if we can't reach out to him directly, whether he can't get our message or something, we will put it on Facebook. Obviously, we're going to put it on the main page of Detroit Lions News Podcast. He won the jersey giveaway, and it was picked at random. I love the random pickers because I'm too nice, and I want to give everyone a jersey. That's just the way it is. But let's talk about the Detroit Lions because, look, there's a lot of stuff that's came out in the last couple of days about coordinators and all that and just jazz. But I wanted to highlight something real quick. Carlos Monterrez had another stupid article, which is not typical for Carlos Monterrez. He said Dan Campbell, Brad Holmes seats could get hot if the Lions flop again in the playoffs. Now, on the first and foremost, last year wasn't really a flop. You weren't going to win a Super Bowl with that team. Now, was it a disappointment? Absolutely. There's no doubt about it. But their jobs are safe here with the Detroit Lions. Now, I know I'm losing people with the Carlos Monterrez thing, but this has become a constant theme of people saying stuff about the edge rushers. And like I said on the last podcast, and I'll say it again, I think the Lions are going to deploy a different type of pass rush because if you looked at the players that they brought with them, you look at a lot of guys that can be flex defensive ends. You know, guys that can play defensive end and play defensive tackle, like Pat O'Connor, like Mekhi Wingo. Mekhi Wingo played defensive end some at LSU, and he played some last year. So, really, you only have 3 edge rushers on the team. You have Al-Quadin Muhammad, you have Hutchinson, you have Pascal, and you have when he comes back, and then you have Davenport. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see how the roster dynamic changes and just be aware the roster can change after this week too, because now you get into a situation where veteran salaries aren't, they're not guaranteed. So this is when you start to see some veteran free agents, maybe like Zadarius Smith coming through the forefront. So that will be interesting. But I took umbrage with what Carlos Monterrez said. He said that if the Lions flop again in the playoffs, which, you never know what could happen. You really never know what could happen. But Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes are not anywhere close to the hot seat. Matter of fact, if you want to put it directly and nice, it's probably one of the dumbest takes I've ever heard from this guy. I mean, he is a total clown, and it's putting it nicely because usually there is some really dumb stuff that he says. But look, saying that Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell could be on the hot seat if they flop again, there's so many different dynamics there to why you lose in the playoffs and why you win in the playoffs. And last year wasn't really a flop. You just were not going to win a Super Bowl if you made mistakes because the defense was shredded with injuries and the offense had to be perfect down the stretch. So, look, I don't blame last year on anyone. I blame it on bad luck, to be honest. So you look at that and Carlos is just a total clown. Now, there's another thing that has been said by the national media that I wanted to get to because this is stupid too. Now, Dan Orlovsky says Ben Johnson hung 122 points in 4 games against Brian Flores the last 2 years. 16 touchdowns and punted 14 times. Video game stuff. Okay, Daniel, I know you like to go out the back of the end zone. I know you love to go out the back of the end zone and get a safety. But the reality of the situation is this. He doesn't take the Lions with him. Ben Johnson is Ben Johnson. He does not get to take Jahmyr Gibbs with him. He does not get to take St. Brown with him. He does not get to take Dave Montgomery with him. He does not get to take Penei Sewell with him or Jared Goff or any of those people. So this moniker about Ben Johnson was the main thing and the main thing only. I find that very hard to believe. When you look at this team and you look at the talent that is on this team, I put it as one of my strengths. Elite playmaking group. elite playmaking group: Goff, Gibbs, Montgomery, St. Brown, Laporta, JMO. And then if you want to add in Isaac Tesla, okay? He could be good too. But the reality of the situation is Ben Johnson's going to Chicago. He is not going to have Jared Goff. He is not going to have Sewell. He is not going to have Decker. He is not going to have Goff, JMO, St. Brown, Laporta, Gibbs. Keep going on. This is a Dan Campbell, Jared Goff, and Penei Sewell. This is a what's built in Detroit. Okay, so all the people that are saying that the Lions offense will fall off the wayside because Ben Johnson went to Chicago. I mean, just think about the offense they ran after they fired Anthony Lynn. It's the same offense. Obviously, Dan Campbell gave them the play call sheet, but Dan Campbell was right there. He was right there. Because on fourth downs, it was more simple. They went for, when they went for it on fourth down, you knew it was a Dan Campbell decision. When they went for it on third down, this guy, Ben Johnson, is doing a halfback delay on a crucial third down against the Green Bay Packers at home with a banged up defense. I mean, come on. Ben Johnson's a great coach. He's a great coach, great offensive coordinator. We don't know what he's going to be as a head coach because we've seen it before. These great offensive coordinators, these great defensive coordinators, they go to be head coaches and they become total flops. Hey, Matt Patricia. Hey, Jim Schwartz. It just happens all the time. But to keep putting the onus, I hear it over and over again from the national media. Like, Ben Johnson gets all the credit, but Jared Goff doesn't. Jahmyr Gibbs doesn't. Amon-Ra St. Brown doesn't. Last I checked, the NFL top 500, Jared Goff was a 15th ranked player. Sewell was in top 30. So was St. Brown. So this whole, just media narrative is totally junk. It's totally junk. And I know these people have stuff to talk about, and they want to hype up the Chicago fan base because Chicago is a big market and all that jazz. I got bad news for Chicago. They're not going to be that great. I don't believe in their quarterback, to be honest. And if you had me to pick a young quarterback in the division that I really like, his name is J.J. McCarthy in Minnesota. I'm not really a fan of Caleb Williams. I've never really been a fan of Caleb Williams. I said that he was getting drafted, I said, look, there's a kid at LSU that's way better than Caleb Williams named Jaden Daniels. And he was way better than Caleb Williams in his first year. I said Drake May, he's a better quarterback. Now, he didn't show it in his first year, but he looks like he could beat a part. And this is where you'll start to get these back and forths of who is going to be what and what is going to be what. So that is that. I'm done talking about it because it's stupid, but the whole Ben Johnson thing is overblown. I know he's a good coach, but I'm not going to overstate the obvious that it's not like he wasn't working with. He was like the main scheme ologist, you know what I'm saying? He had talent on that offense that is uncanny. I mean, if you play Madden, go play Madden with the Lions. It's pretty damn fun because they're a good team. I mean, anybody can really call the offense. I mean, if you have a half a brain, look, what are we gonna do? Let's go do it. So, yeah, that's all that is with the Ben Johnson stuff because it is what it is. But as we look at the injury report today, obviously there was some people that were out. We'll talk about it. Here is the injury report from today. Trevor Nowatzki, no practice. Sione Vaki, no practice. Limited practice was Jamarco Jones. Isaac Tesla's battling illness. He was a limited practice. And Coyote Oshika had a shoulder. He was a full practice. So that is very interesting when you look at that from that perspective because we knew Vaki was not going to play in game one. We knew that for a fact because Coach Campbell told us. Trevor Nowatzki, we don't know what he's dealing with, but that will be a kind of a big injury because he is a depth linebacker. But if you heard Kelvin Shepard talk about the depth of the linebacker position today, he basically said, look, we get Zach Cunningham. What a great find for Brad Holmes because he's our fourth linebacker and he could start on some teams. And then when you get Rodrigo back, it's going to be even push up the thing. But if there's any injury here that you should worry about in terms of depth, I would say it'd be Jamarco Jones because Dan Skipper, there's been no inklings of him moving up to the squad. And Jamarco Jones is the backup tackle. So if there is a tackle injury, I mean, you could be seeing Giovanni Manu in the whole thing. So that would be very, very interesting from that perspective. So that is that. But I wanted to get to this. So, a lot of people talk about Dan Campbell. They talk about him as a meathead, right? Oh, this guy, he's just, Metallica, Beavis and Butthead type stuff. This guy is awesome against the division. You talk about Dan Campbell against NFC North. He is 17-7 versus the NFC North, 6-2 against the Packers, 6-2 against the Vikings, and his only three-loss team is the Bears for some odd reason. The Bears haven't been any good the last couple of years, but somehow they're 5-3 against Dan Campbell and the Detroit Lions. And it goes without saying how important Dan Campbell thinks these divisional games are, because we've heard him talk about it before, saying that it's basically a game and a half. If you can win two of them, if you can win one over the other, those games count more than any other game. And it's an emphasis in their culture, man. Like when they go play the NFC North, it is an emphasis to go win against those teams. So when you look at a team like the Packers, they're a good team. But when you look at how they play against the Detroit Lions, it is very startling because Dan Campbell has actually really made some of his coaches look pretty bad, especially with some of the, obviously some of the things that he's been able to do in the last couple of years. I mean, last year, if I'm Matt LaFleur, there was an easy opportunity for my team to beat the Detroit Lions. They were beat up on defense. We could have had a win against them at Ford Field, but instead you lose the game. And what a great game that was! What a great call it was by Dan Campbell to go for it on fourth down at that one junction. And that just goes to show you that's the difference in some of these coaches. Kevin O'Connell is more of a conservative coach in terms of going for it on fourth down. He goes for it a little bit more, especially against Dan Campbell. I think he's one of the best coaches in the division. But Matt LaFleur is a guy, he will not go for it on fourth down. And when he does, he's usually wrong. When Dan Campbell goes for it, he's usually right. So that's how it goes. But those are little decisions that go into things. And like I said, the divisional record that Dan Campbell has isn't no joke. Like this is something he prides himself on. This is something that Bill Parcells prided himself on. When you go back and you look at Bill Parcells, he always said, "I want to beat my divisional opponents by 50 plus." Now, do you beat your divisional opponents by 50 plus? No, but he emphasized beating them because it's sending a message to those divisional teams like, okay, look, you think you're the top dog, you're not the top dog. We're going to beat you right now, and we're going to take you down. Now, how does it relate to this game today against a Sunday against the Green Bay Packers? It relates to it in a lot of different ways. Detroit's won a lot of games at Lambeau recently. I was doing a podcast with a couple a Viking fan and a Packer fan, and we all agreed Detroit wins on Sunday. Because for some reason the Detroit Lions have the Packers number, and the Packers are going to have to make this game up in a different way. Now, I don't say the Packers aren't going to win this game, but I will say this: the Packers are going to do a damn good job. Micah Parsons being added to the Green Bay Packers obviously makes this a tougher division. I do think this division is a 12, 11, 10 win division. Every team in this division, besides the Bears, could win 12, 11, 10 games. I don't think the Bears are able to win 12, 11, 10 games, but we'll see. We'll see what Caleb Williams is all about. But when you look at this division, you look at the quarterback comparisons between Jared Goff and Jordan Love, it's really not even close. So you look at Jared Goff versus the Packers, 201 completions, 296 attempts, 2,110 yards, 16 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, a passer rating of 100.8. You look at Jordan Love against the Lions. This is a very jarring stat right here. 90 for 144, 1,127 yards, 6 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, passer rating of 86.2. Now, the key mark here is Love has been pressured on 28.3% of his dropbacks against Detroit. A quarter of his dropbacks, he's pressured at a 28.3% clip. Just think about that. Every time he plays the Detroit Lions, more than a quarter of a time, he's going to be pressured. That's unbelievable. And when you think about what is it lead up to? Well, look, Jordan Love is a hell of a quarterback. He's very good. But when you get pressure on him, you force him into mistakes. That's where you win the game. And when we look back at the last couple games that Jordan Love has had against the Detroit Lions, I mean, some of his games are pretty good. Like when he came into Detroit on Thanksgiving and he just wiped them clean. I mean, that was a good game for him. But you look at like some of the games, like last year's game. I mean, I thought that was a game that he should have had a better thing. But this is so the last couple games. Week 4, 2023 at Green Bay, he had a line of 19 of 28, 210 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, a passer rating of 86.9. The Lions won that game 34-20. If you look at Thanksgiving Day, this is the game that he absolutely he did a great job, but he turned the ball over 3 times, and the Lions lost 29-22. That was a game that Detroit let get away. Week 9 of 2024 at Green Bay, Goff threw 1 touchdown pass to Amon-Ra St. Brown in the first half. Lions won 24-14. Additional scoring in that game was included one TD run by Jahmyr Gibbs. And like you look at it from the whole standpoint of how he has played against that week, the 2 meetings in 2024, he combined for 475 yards, 35 of 59 for passes, 1 touchdown, 1 interceptions across both games. The Packers lost both matchups. Look, it comes down to a couple things, man. This kid there's a good side of him, which was the Thanksgiving game, but even as good as that was, it still wasn't great. He wasn't great in that game. In that game against, he had a TD pass to Jaden Reed, Tucker Kraft, and Christian Watson. Watson helping secure a 29-12 win, 29-22 win. But look, that's what you love to see because the Lions are obviously able to do what they need to do, and Jordan Love is going to be a unique problem in his own right because if he can have time back there, he'll be a pretty damn good quarterback. But usually the Detroit Lions don't give him time. As I said, if you go back to the graphic, Love has been pressured on 28.3% of his dropbacks against Detroit. Over a quarter of the time, he's getting pressure on his dropbacks. Amazing stuff. I didn't even know that. I wasn't even aware that Jordan Love was pressured over a quarter of the time on his dropbacks against the Detroit Lions. That's insane. But that goes with what I was just trying to say earlier, that Dan Campbell makes a huge emphasis for his team, for his players, that this is a huge game. Every divisional game is a huge game, and it's an opportunity to push yourself over the top. That's why this game is so big, and that's why Dan Campbell has the record he has of a 17-7 record, 6-2 against the Packers, 6-2 against the Vikings, and 5-3 against the Bears. So when you put an emphasis on it, you're going to love it. Now, that isn't the only thing that has been said about today's game, Sunday's game. I keep saying today because I keep trying to rush it. But today, Micah Parsons talked to the Green Bay Packers media. This is what he said. He said, I never liked Detroit. And if you go further into what he was trying to say, which, Micah Parsons isn't really a wordsmith and not really a smart guy, to be honest. But he said, I never liked Detroit, Parsons said. I never liked them. When I was in Dallas, it was always just a heavyweight fight every time they came in. They kind of got our guys when I was injured last year. The whole team was injured. I just think it's funny how things work. I'm excited to play them. I know they're excited. It's going to be it's going to go all 12 to 15 rounds. I love that he is making excuses about the Dallas game last year because, look, I don't know if you watched the Detroit Lions last year, but we beat the Green Bay Packers with a JV squad defense, literally a JV squad defense. When you think about starting a guy like Jamal Adams off the streets, a guy like Quan Alexander off the streets, and you have them come in, and they come in and they do pretty good on defense to the point where you still win the game. That's pretty amazing, man. Now, I thought it was really, really funny how Micah's talking about this and that. just totally funny, to be honest. But it is what it is. The guy is a total. The guy is a total. He's a great player, but he talks a lot, man. Even if you hear some of the rumblings that are from, uh, they're from Dallas. I was listening to Dallas radio a couple days ago, and they were talking about Micah Parsons, how he has issues in the locker room that people were starting to say, like, okay, his issue, the podcast is an issue. Him talking is an issue. Time he gets on a mic, it's an issue. And you've seen it today. I never liked Detroit. This guy, you don't hear Detroit players talk like that because it's not well recommended. Now, when I'm around St. Brown wears a Green Bay Sucks shirt, okay, that's one thing. But Micah Parsons is always talking, and he's a great player. He's going to be able to get away with a lot more than other players. But if he was some average player, there's no way anybody would stand for this. This guy is a great player, obviously, one of the best since he's been drafted, and he just never can keep his mouth shut. Never can keep his mouth shut. But it is what it is. The guy is a unique player, but he's also a unique showcase of what you don't want to become if you're a great player. Is a loud mouth that attracts attention. I think Amon-Ra St. Brown attracts attention sometimes with his mouth, but you know what? He can back it up. So can Parsons. So when you're that good, I guess you could talk your stuff. But when it becomes an issue in the locker room, that's another thing, and that's kind of what some of the Dallas people were saying about Micah Parsons. Like, it's becoming an issue. I mean, obviously, there's no reason for Jerry Jones to just sell Micah Parsons for Kenny Clark, but whatever. It makes the Packers' run defense look even worse because, as we talked about, the Detroit Lions versus the Packers last year. Do you realize that last year? Oh shoot! Last year, I almost just totally ruined this thing. Last year against the Packers, you rushed for two of your highest rushing games were against the Packers. You had a 111 and you had a 124. Those were your lowest, and you still won the game. So it is what it is. But as we look at for it, that's what it is about Micah Parsons. So there you go. Justin says Ben Johnson will not be a good head coach. I agree with you 100%. He won't be a good head coach. He has an OC mind. I agree with you 100%. Look, there is a lot of coaches out there that are great OCs. Josh McDaniels is one, but when he got the chance to be a head coach, never worked out. Never worked out. Matt Patricia, another one. Defensive coordinator. He's a so-so defensive coordinator, I thought. But as a head coach, he was a disaster. I think if you were to ask me which Lions coordinator would be the better head coach, I would say probably Aaron Glenn. That's who I would say is going to be the better head coach. Players make plays. Our core guys are still there. I can OC this crew. Probably. This is people responding to anybody could be the OC of the Detroit Lions because look, you watch this team play. You play them on Madden, and they're there. You don't even want to know. Steve says Dan plays to win, and it's in his DA to go for 4. It's not any other reason but to win. Demo hates the Packers more than us. That's a good point. Dave Montgomery does hate the Packers more than us. And the Packers was 1-5 against the division. Let's hope they're better. Let's hope they're not, but it is what it is. So let's talk about the coordinators because they both were talking today. Obviously, this is the topic of conversation with people. How are the Detroit Lions going to replace their coordinators? How are they going to replace Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn? Let's go talk about that with Kelvin Shepherd. This is from earlier in the training camp. I know people missed it, but I'll play it again because I love the clip and I think this is a really good clip.
I want to give credit to Dan Campbell. I want to give credit to Dan Campbell and Aaron Glenn because it's exactly what I thought it would.
All right, let's go to Johnny Morton.
The one thing that's impressed me is all these weapons.
I don't know why it's not going good. All right, we'll go to them in a minute. I gotta go into another one because for some reason the StreamYard is not working good. All right, I'm back. I, I had to exit out because the thing wasn't working. So it is what it is. Here's Shep.
I want to give credit to Dan Campbell and Aaron Glenn because it's exactly what I thought it would be, and I'm humbly saying that. I don't feel overwhelmed. I got asked by somebody close to me yesterday, do you feel any overwhelmed? Do you feel discomfort? I've never felt that, and that's a blessing to be able to say that in my first year and my first 6 months of doing this, and I credit my staff for that. When you look down the row of my staff, it's everybody from guys that's been around me 20 years and was my roommate in college. That's August Mangin, Caleb Collins, I coach with at LSU, work close with, to guys that's coached me, Dave Correa, Casey Rogers, to guys I've watched while I was playing, Jim O'Neal, Deshae Townsend. So it's not like it's a rookie staff by any means. 2 guys on my staff are former coordinators. These guys, and it's an open floor. It's not, and I told the players the other day in the defensive unit meeting, this isn't my stuff I'm saying. This is our stuff. So I'm not ever going to stand up here and say like I'm some genius guru and I invented football. I allow my staff to have ownership in their respective positions. I allow input from everyone from top to bottom. And if there's a why behind it, it's going in. And these guys know that. So I think that allows them to work harder. The trust is there. There's no looking over your shoulder. I don't have to go in position rooms and wonder what's being said. I know it's one voice. And when you have that level of comfortability within your staff, I'm able to do more of my coordinator stuff versus looking over people's shoulders. So I just want to give a lot of credit to my staff.
And look, if you listen to that clip, this is why I played it, because when you talk about Kelvin Shepherd and you talk about is he ready for the moment of being the defensive coordinator of the Detroit Lions, and if you've ever heard him talk, he is so passionate, he is so knowledgeable, and you go back and you listen to people talk about Kelvin Shepherd, the player. Kelvin Shepherd, the player, was an amazing, smart player. Like he was going to be a coach, and I will tell you this: Kelvin Shepherd will be a head coach pretty soon. Because he's so damn smart, he's so damn gifted, he's a great communicator, and he learns from his people that he's coaching, like him receiving input. That's what the most important coaches do. They always receive input. Now, some coaches aren't like that. Bill Belichick was one of those guys, and he did a damn good job. But like a guy like Andy Reid, he loves input from his players. Dan Campbell loves input from his players. Some of these new coaches, I remember listening to a podcast about Bill Walsh, and Bill Walsh was like, man, I'll tell you what, getting input from Joe Montana on the offense was the most important thing that could happen. And I was listening to a podcast today from the PBD podcast. Ray Lewis was on, and Marvin Lewis was their defensive coordinator at the time. And he said that, Marvin, don't overthink it. Don't overthink it. Just let us go. And that's when they became the 2000 Ravens, where they were just so damn physical. And that's what good coaches do. Sometimes coaches have to relinquish the power. That's the most important thing. Sometimes people don't really understand that, because when you talk about coaches, sometimes they're like, oh, we could do this and blah, 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 blah. Sometimes it just doesn't work like that. And sometimes you have to listen to your players. And that's exactly what Kelvin Shepherd does. And that's the reason that he's he's going to be a very, very good coordinator for the Detroit Lions. So I like where Kelvin Shepherd's going from. And I think he's going to be a damn good head coach. And he said this today, and I want to play it for you because this is the most important thing you could hear from the coach. Let me put it up for you. This is Mr. Kelvin Shepherd on the Detroit Lions being a defense being a family. Did I put it up? Okay, I put it up. All right.
Family. We're not friends. I tell them we're not friends here. We're family. You're going to go through things together, and we're still going to be family after. Friends, you kind of separate, and that is what it is. We're a family here. And that's what you're going to see displayed on the field, is a family out there fighting together down in and down.
Don't you just love that? Like, don't you just love to hear a guy like Kelvin Shepherd? What a great guy this guy seems like. Like, I know there's certain coaches that you listen to and you go, man, this coach, I'll run through a wall for him. But when you actually like the coach, you'll run through a wall for him. It's a very, very key thing about that. So very cool. on Calvin Shepard's part. Now, he did say some interesting stuff about who he's got to attack and what he's got to do in the game. And he did say this about DJ Reed. He said, Calvin Shepard, DJ Reed has meant everything to our defense, says he could easily have been named the captain. And let's be honest right here. I called it from the start. DJ Reed was one of the most important acquisitions for this Detroit Lions team. Now you're saying, why was he a huge acquisition? Because you have an elite secondary, Branch, Joseph, DJ Reed, Arnold, Robertson. And when you can add guys like that, especially you add in veterans like Rocky Sin, you add in veterans like Avonte Maddox, you're going to be well placed to be a damn good football team moving forward. That's what you love to see. That's what you love to do. And what we've seen from the Detroit Lions last year when they were just blown to smithereens by injuries, they still came together and they were still a top 10 team in EPA per play. I think a lot of people overglanced that. They were a top 10 team in the NFL on defense in EPA per play. And now people are going to be like, I don't like statistics and I don't like analysis and I don't like analytics. But sometimes you got to give credence to where credence is due. You know, some analytics show nothing, and some analytics like EPA per play, which I love. It's something that I track all season long because it shows you if the team is good. It shows you if the player's good. If you're getting the most out of the player, like Jared Goff, like Jahmyr Gibbs, like St. Brown. And when you see that Detroit was top 10 in both, they realistically, without injuries, could have been a really good team. So that's why I'm really excited about this year, about what they can do, because I said in my bold predictions, I said Lions offense and defense is going to be top 5. I think Hutchinson could win the Defensive Player of the Year. And Gibbs leads the league in scrimmage yards. Hutchinson would be the first Lion to win since Joe Smith. Gibbs would be the first Lion to do that since Barry Sanders. So that would be really, really cool to see those guys do that. Now let's talk about something that is a key for the game. Because when we look at the game, Calvin Shepard also stepped up to the podium for his first game as a coordinator, said he's excited for his guys' first game, doesn't want to try attention to it being his first game as DC. Says the number one emphasis is stopping the run. Josh Jacobs adds rookie Matthew Golden, who will be he evaluated during the draft, is electric and will impact the Packers' offense with speed. I love Matthew Golden. I think he's going to be a really good player. But when you look at Josh Jacobs against the Detroit Lions, it's really a huge portion to how you're going to structure this and how you're going to be good at it. You got to structure it like always. Now, Josh Jacobs versus the Lions, 74 carries, 342 yards per carry, 4.6 yards per carry, 6 touchdowns. In the last game he played against the Detroit Lions, 18 carries, 66 yards, and 3 touchdowns. So when you think about that, it's important to stop Josh Jacobs because he is a major key in their offense. And if you think about the way that Jordan Love has performed against the Detroit Lions, where he's been pressured on 28.3% of his dropbacks against Detroit, when you think about the Green Bay Packers, they're going to want to run it. They're going to want to keep Love as fresh as they can because of how he is pressured. And if you look at, Josh Jacobs' last game, 18 carries, 66 yards. He didn't get 100 yards, but he got 3 touchdowns. So all that matters is getting in the end zone. Obviously, they worked it down to where Josh Jacobs could get an easy touchdown. But that is what the Green Bay Packers are going to do. And Josh Jacobs, he's a home run hitter. As much as we talk about Saquon and Philly, as much as we talk about Derrick Henry with the Baltimore Ravens, we talked about it in the lead up to the schedule release. You look at the running backs that you will play this year: Saquon Barkley, Kyren Williams, Josh Jacobs, and Derrick Henry. These are the 4 best running backs that you will play. And I think Josh Jacobs is either 1 or 2. But obviously Saquon Barkley would be number 1, number uno. Obviously, the strong QBs. Obviously, I don't think Jordan Love is this strong QB. I know that people want to gift him and say that he's going to be a great quarterback in the NFL, all that jazz. I don't think so. We'll see how it plays out for Jordan Love and the Green Bay Packers. Um, David Beard says, "Go Lions." Steve says he realized you're only as good as your staff and players. He's taking the brakes off his defense. It's going to be fun to watch. I talked about this when they hired Calvin Shepard. There's probably not a guy that I really want to be the defensive coordinator like Calvin Shepard. Because when we talk about what do you want to see out of your defensive coordinator, I want to see my defensive coordinator develop some guys. Like I want to see my defensive coordinator develop guys. Like what did Calvin Shepard do with the linebacking unit? Made them great. He made them fantastic, man. That linebacker group is just as strong as nails. Rodrigo, Jack Campbell has grown each and every year. Alex Anzalone, Derek Barnes. I mean, Derek Barnes from year 1 to year 4, there's a huge difference. And if you think about it this way, and I tell people this all the time, when people talk about the edge rushers, I have a feeling that Shepard is going to use Barnes and Anzalone in edge rusher roles. Because if you look at them as linebackers and you went on Pro Football Focus and you looked at their win rate and their pressures, their win rate is top 10 in the NFL for linebackers rushing the passer. So you think about that and you're like, okay, this is a very, very key thing that we're not talking about. Because a lot of people put the onus on edge rushers. I have a feeling they're going to use some exotic looks because of the secondary, because of how deep that secondary is, because of, you could roll out Branch, Joseph, Maddox, you could roll out Robertson, you could roll out all those guys. So that would be a very, very interesting way. And I think we got to see what the Lions defense looks like, because I think there's going to be exotic looks. I think they're going to have a multiple type look. I don't think they're going to have a set 3-4, 4-3, but I think Calvin Shepard is so smart. I think he is going to kind of wing it up until they get Lee McNeil back. That's what I think he's going to do. And I think that's the way this roster is kind of put together. He's going to have pass rushers for 4th down. He's going to have run stoppers for 1st and 2nd down. Those big guys, Tyleik Williams, Roy Lopez, and DJ Reader. Good luck running against those guys. And if Marcus Davenport can stay healthy, he could be a really key piece for the Detroit Lions. That's, again, Marcus Davenport staying healthy is a big if. So that is it for the defensive side. Now, as we go to the offensive side, now I will hit on some comments. Gabe Samples on YouTube says 6 TDs to 5 picks is crazy. It's absolutely nuts. To be honest, I had to double check because when I researched it, it said 6 to 5. I was like, huh? I'm gonna go research it. I did the whole breakdown on Pro Football Reference, and yeah, it was insane. And the one that got me was a 28.3% of dropbacks that he's pressured on against the Detroit Lions. That's something I did not expect at all. Steve says, "Do we know if Anzalone got a deal?" Anzalone did get a semblance of a deal, but the reality of the situation is I think that they're trying to just make him happy for the year, and hopefully they can work on something throughout the year. Obviously, there's a back and forth kind of thing, and obviously the Lions are caring about where their salary cap is because they are approaching that danger point of the 30% club, which 30% club you don't think about much. That is your top 4 players in salary cap percentage. And usually when you're over 30%, you do not win a Super Bowl. Now there's been a couple teams that have done that. It was the Broncos with Peyton Manning and the DeMarcus Ware and Von Miller, and the Rams with Cooper Kupp and Stafford and all those guys over there with, that when they won the Super Bowl, Odell Beckham and everything. They did it. But usually when you get in that range of over 30%, you really put your onus on your roster and you're not as deep. So that's the reason that I think that the Lions are kind of playing around, because even the Eagles last year had a 29.2% clip on their salary cap percentage. I know a lot of people think that they go right to the top, but they save a lot of money with some of the guys like on the defensive line. Didn't pay anybody over $12.2 million. So that's what it is right there. Gabe says, what's your opinion on not resigning Zadarius Smith? Personally, I'm a bit nervous about who's going to be on the opposite side of Hutch. I talked about this with one of my admins on the Facebook page. And I was talking to him. I was like, look, I do still think there's a chance that they could sign Zadarius Smith. I do. Now, if you don't know, next week is after week 1, veteran salaries are not guaranteed. So you're going to see a lot of veterans getting signed. Probably by Tuesday, you're going to see a ton of them get signed. And whether Zadarius Smith is one of them, I imagine he's going to be one of them. Whether it's with the Detroit Lions or not, I mean, I would think that Detroit Lions would circle back and, do what they need to do. But I have a feeling that, maybe he's going to get a better deal. But then again, if he was going to get a better deal somewhere else, you think he would have already signed. So that whole situation doesn't really. There's nothing about the situation that I could read into and say, "Oh, that makes sense." That makes sense, because I just don't know. I think the Zadarius Smith stuff is wild because you did hear who is it? Kendrick Bourne. He used to play for the Patriots. He said he's going to wait till Tuesday to make his decision. I have a feeling, and I was listening to Pat Kerwin on Moving the Chains, and he said the same thing, that he expects 12 to 14 players to sign right away on Tuesday because veteran salaries are not guaranteed. And if they need to get out of their contract, they want to go play for a better team, they could do that. That's the whole reason that some of these older players do it. And teams do it because they don't want to have the void years and push money to the future. So that's kind of the way it works right there. So I don't know. I'm a little bit nervous, but I think that they're going to deploy a different kind of defense that I'm not really expecting. I don't think the fan base is expecting. So we'll see what happens on Sunday because I have a feeling we're going to be thrown in through a loop. Could explain why Zadarius is on the outside looking in. Yeah, the thing about Zadarius is we know that the Lions, if you look at the players that they brought back, like Pat O'Connor, like Mekhi Wingo, some of those guys are really good against the run. I know last year Zadarius Smith against the run was 55th. Ironically, Micah Parsons was 56th. So Trey Hendrickson was 52nd. So sometimes those better pass rushers are a liability in the rushing game. And that's something that I really learned just in the past week because I looked at Micah Parsons' stats as a versus the run, and it's not much greater. It's pretty poor, to be honest. All right, let's get to something that I really want to get to. Obviously, Johnny Morton talked about today. This is something I really can't wait to get into. He talked about this is Coach Shepard. Here is this right here. Johnny Morton asked if he envisions a similar workload split between Jahmyr Gibbs and Dave Montgomery in 2025. He smiled and he said, "We'll see." Now, the thing I like about Johnny Morton, I'll tell you, first of all, what John Morton did in Denver as a passing game coordinator for Bo Nix and the Denver Broncos last year was absolutely phenomenal. Because when you think about Bo Nix last year, when you realize he didn't take a snap under center, and you have to prepare your quarterback with passes in shotgun, in pistol every week. And then you get a guy like Jared Goff, who is really good under the center. It opens up the whole playbook. And even with Johnny Morton being the passing game coordinator for the Denver Broncos, they still were a damn good team passing the ball when they had to, which they were really good passing the ball. And because the Broncos could not run, that's another thing about the Broncos that was surprising. They couldn't run. So that's fun. But here was Johnny Morton earlier in the training camp talking about all the weapons.
The one thing that's impressed me is all these weapons. Man, I'm just trying to get the guy's balls as much as I can. But I just think the overall, the grit, their attitude, because it's been hard mentally. I want to see where they're at, and they've responded. We got a smart, tough football team. That's the way this thing is built. And I'm real happy with where we're at right now.
You heard Johnny Morton talk about all the weapons that he has at his disposal. And then he had a similar comment that I want to play right now because I know a lot of people didn't tune in the offseason because, things. And summer, having fun in the summer. Here was him about being in a lab.
I just love the whole aspect of just sitting in my laboratory by myself and, trying to dissect the defense. I think that's fun.
So you heard Johnny Morton talk about dissecting defense, and he's been very coy on how he's going to deploy Jahmyr Gibbs and Dave Montgomery. And when you think about it from the Detroit Lions perspective, they have a team that's going to be a good rushing team. You talk about Jahmyr Gibbs and Dave Montgomery; those are two of the best running back tandems. That's one of the best running back tandems in the league. So when you think about the Detroit Lions and how they're going to deploy their offense, I just look back to what J-Mo said earlier in the in training camp. He said, Coach Johnny Mo is letting me run more routes. He said, I knew I could run more routes, and he's putting me in the position to run more routes. I'm getting better with cuts and angles and how to run this route and that route. I'd say I'm a little more polished in my route game. It's amazing what a guy like Johnny Morton could do, because Johnny Morton is a good coach. You think about it like this, because he's given the players the chance to put themselves on the next step. Now, if you look at Johnny Morton's philosophy on his coaching philosophy, it's sound decision-making, which is Jared Goff in a nutshell, explosive plays, which is number 2, and he wants to excel on third down. Now, his big play alerts are pass of 16-plus yards and a run of 11-plus yards. I think he would have no problem getting that with Jameson Williams, who, if you look at Jameson Williams' yards per catch last year, it was 17.3. You look at some of the things that St. Brown could do, and Goff could do, and Gibbs could do, and Laporta could do, and J-Mo, and now you got Isaac Tesla in the fold, and you could see how that goes. Now, what did Sean Payton say about Johnny Morton? That was his guy that he hired last year. Payton on Morton said he's super passionate. He works his tail off. Payton said of Morton, who was his pass game coordinator for the Broncos last season, he's great with film study and ideas. He's one of those guys that will bring you in the red zone, third down, a lot of information. So that's a guy that I want to be the offensive coordinator for my football team. I'll just say it out loud. Now, Breeze spoke about him. There was a lot of people that talked about Johnny Mo, but Johnny is going to be a damn good player, coach for this team, because when you got guys like Jahmyr Gibbs, 20 total touchdowns, he played 53% of the snaps. When you guys got guys like Dave Montgomery, 775 yards, he missed 3 games, he had 341 yards and 36 receptions. It's very hard not to say that this team is going to be very, very good. And then you look at some of the offensive playmakers that this team has. Again, it's going to be very, very tough for people to dismiss the Detroit Lions offensive coordinator. Now, let's get into, because the Eagles game and the Cowboys game, I think a lot of people want to watch that, so we'll get to that in a minute. But let's look at the game keys. This is what I say. I say make love win it. And why I say make love win it, because when you put Jordan Love in the position to go win the football game, what is he going to do? Now, you look at him as a passer against the Detroit Lions. I put this out here, and a couple people were like, wow, I can't believe the statistics. 6 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 86.2 passer rating, okay? You make love win it. You make love win it. He's going to make mistakes, and you got to take advantage of those mistakes, because he's a very he's a good passer, does a good job, but he is a guy that you really want to have. You really want to make him win the football game, because when you make him win the football game, I mean, look at the 49er game that he had that year that Detroit went to the NFC Championship game. He made some disastrous decisions in that game that really skewed the whole game. And I thought the Green Bay Packers could have won that game if they would have just played a little more clean, but Jordan Love wasn't going to allow that there. Now, the thing about Jordan Love is he's going to have to deal with this. Now, Hutchinson versus Zach Tom. Zach Tom is their tackle. In 2023, he had 9 total pressures with Zach Tom. Hutchinson versus Green Bay, 5 solo tackles, 5 assists. That's 10 tackles in 4 games and 3.5 sacks and 1 interception. We all know the interception because he was just fantastic. Hutch is going to play a big role in this. Now, Micah Parsons is probably going to play a big role in this. That's why he's at the end, because look, you're not going to stop Parsons. You're not going to stop Hutch. You got to limit them. And that's the way it goes. So if the Lions can limit Parsons, that could be a huge key to the thing. And if Hutchinson can get going, that could be a very huge key because, again, Jordan Love's been pressured on 28.3% of his dropbacks as a passer. There's no reason to think that this isn't going to be any different. I think the Lions are going to get a good pass rush against Green Bay, and I think they're really going to get to Jordan Love. And that brings number 2. You got to stop Josh Jacobs. Like, if you could stop Josh Jacobs, I mean, this guy, he's an unbelievable runner. And when he gets running, I mean, there was one game where he was playing for Oakland where he had 128 yards. So you look at what he did last game, 18 carries, 66 yards, and 3 touchdowns. He's routinely with Detroit played a good game. Even against the Lions a couple years ago when he was playing with the Vegas Raiders, he still had a good game. He had a big run that got him over 80 yards or whatever. But for the most part, the Detroit Lions have hemmed him in. And I think that's a major selling point and a major focus point for the Detroit Lions. They're trying to hem Josh Jacobs in because he is a very, very key player for that team. So you got to keep him hemmed in. You got to control what you can control. And stopping Josh Jacobs is probably the biggest thing about that. And the last one is control the clock. We've already put the limit Parsons, but controlling the clock is the most important thing because if you can give not a lot of time for Jordan Love, if you can make him have to make some clutch plays to win it, I like the Detroit Lions' chances a lot more. Now, they did that in the last time they were in Green Bay. They won 24-14. They had one passing touchdown, but they ran the ball at a considerable pace, and they controlled the time of possession, and they made Jordan Love make plays. And when he couldn't make plays, Detroit took the game over. And that's what they have to do in this game because this is the most important game. It's game 1. Game 1 is the most important game when we talk about looking at the team, the Green Bay Packers. I mean, they're going to be right with us the whole way. So getting this first win, then they come to you the next time. Huge point of the schedule. You got 2 NFC North games. You know Dan Campbell is going to use every bit of momentum because, as I said, he does not lose division games. 17-7 versus NFC North, 6-2 against the Packers. This guy is going to want to really make a push to be that guy. So there you go. I do think the Detroit Lions have a very good chance. I think they're going to win this game. I really do. I think they're going to win this game. I think it'll be a tight game. I think it'll be tight, 24-21, that type of game, because there's so much talent on both sides of the field. Obviously, Detroit has more depth, so I think that's why they will win the game. But if you look at it from a perspective of the Packers, they are getting Micah Parsons, but I'm worried about their run game and how they're going to stop Jahmyr Gibbs and Dave Montgomery. And if I'm Johnny Moe, how am I going to deploy the run game against this rush defense? It's going to be a sight to be seen. But we will do a post-game podcast right after the game, about an hour. We'll talk about it on the Detroit Lions News podcast. As always, I'll get to a couple comments that are in the comment section. Is it just me, or is Sam Laporta kind of drifted in the shadows? Zero buzz from the media or teammates. I think everyone knows what Sam Laporta is all about. Like, I think Sam Laporta is going to be Sam Laporta. Like, last year we heard that he was dealing with injuries. So Sam Laporta, I think he's going to do a damn good job with the Detroit Lions, and he's a huge piece to our team. And honestly, it's probably a good thing he's not showing out, because if we can get him on a cheaper contract, that helps the Detroit Lions in a very good way. Now, obviously, I talked about Travis Wright winning the jersey contest. We will get information to him, but I wanted to say something. So, as you know, I am a big football guy. I started my football career at Livonia Franklin football, and my football coach, Coach Calbert, is in the Hall of Fame. Now, I want to congratulate Coach Calbert, number one, for being in the Hall of Fame. Number two, I want to congratulate him on coaching me, because I know that wasn't the easiest thing. And I want to congratulate the Calberts as a whole, because they're a great family and they do a great job, and they're a very, very key piece to Livonia Franklin football. And I would not be here right now talking football on a podcast with 87,000 followers, and one of the most listened to podcasts in the Detroit Lions podcast realm, if it wasn't for Coach Calbert and the lessons I learned on the football field. So I always tell people that when you are a young kid, your greatest influences, no matter how you slice it, are your football coaches. They are your football coaches because not only do they prepare you for football, but they prepare you for life. And I couldn't be more happy for Coach Calbert. I wish I could be there tomorrow. I can't be there tomorrow, but um, I'm just so happy that he's a Hall of Fame coach. He deserves it, and hopefully some team that he has wins the state championship, because if there's any coach that really deserves it in terms of the impact that he's made on his players, it's Coach Calbert. So I want to congratulate Coach Calbert of Livonia Franklin High School. As a Patriot, a Patriot, it was great to be a player under Coach Calbert, and it's kind of a similar feeling to Dan Campbell in some type of way, because he was a player's coach, and every player on the football field really respected and loved the guy. So thank you, Coach Calbert, and thank you for everything you did for the program, reviving that Livonia Franklin football program, making them get to the state championship a couple times, winning multiple city championships. It's just a great thing for you and the family. And obviously, as every player that you've coached is just elated to hear the news that you were the Hall of Fame coach. So very great. I'm very happy for Coach Calbert, and I wish I could be there tomorrow against John Glenn, but I can't. I got obligations, obviously, with a baby in the household. Some things have to take precedence because I do this podcast a couple times a week. So that is it for the Detroit Lions News podcast. I'll see you guys in the next podcast. We talk more Detroit Lions football here on the Detroit Lions News podcast. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode. We talk more Detroit Lions football here on the Detroit Lions News podcast.